In today's video, I'm excited to look at another pen from Benu. This is the Dailymate, and this comes in a range of different finishes, which I'll talk about more in the video. This is a really simple, clean pen from Benu, uses its standard number 6 size nib, and so today we're going to give it a full review here on this channel. In the meantime, please like and subscribe, hit the notifications button and all that kind of stuff. Please consider becoming a member of this channel, where for a small monthly fee, you'll get early access to my videos, priority comments, and of course, when the community has grown a little bit, some members only Q&As. But in the meantime, let's look at this wonderful pen from one of my favorite brands, Benu. So, the Benu Dailymate. This is the Fresh Monday version that I have here. Love the Benu packaging. Pen comes in a nice box. It came with a converter and everything as well, and a cartridge. I'm using the cartridge at the moment. It's my favorite ink, so why not? And this is the Fresh Monday. So there are a bunch of different designs. There's not just 7 for the days of the week. There's more than that. Some days have multiple versions. This Fresh Monday version, as they say, has refreshing green with sunny gold sparkles. These pens are not going to be to everyone's taste. I completely understand that. But some of their more restrained pens, I'm thinking of the Darwin Tribute pen, absolutely remarkable. This one I like some of the design features. We're going to talk about the parts and features, but also I kind of really like the sort of emeraldy shimmery green that they've used in this material. That's what really jumped out to me. So let's talk about parts and features. Top of the pen is slightly domed, and we then get a little joint in the cap there where the clip has gone in, and it's just a simple springy metal clip. Nice simple design. It does the job. It doesn't have a whole lot of space between the between the clip and the pen, so putting it over bigger materials and things might get a bit tricky, but generally speaking it's okay. The cap swells. It's got Benu there, and sort of filled in with silver on the cap there. Little step down off the cap onto the barrel, which is fluted, which is quite a nice little touch, and that tapers to a rounded end there. The material, as you can see, is a sort of a tealy green with sort of more foresty green sort of undertone in there, with some dark, nice black sort of colors, and then the golden green sort of shimmer in there. And it's it's quite a nice sort of combination of colors. It is a twist cap, and it comes off in about 1.5 turns. You get a little step down onto the section with some threads, and the section tapers, slightly flares out, and it's got a number 6 size nib. Now, this particular nib is the 1.1 millimeter stub nib, which is made by Reveiw. Basically, you can get this pen in fine, medium, broad, 1.1, 1.5, and an elastic fine. The elastic fine and then the stub nibs are made by Reveiw. The standard nibs are made by Schmidt. Now, those sections are not interchangeable. So when you get one, that's sort of what you're with. If you decide you go from a 1.1 to 1.5 stub, you can swap those out, but just be aware that's the case. As I said, this one is made by Reveiw. It's a number 6 steel nib. I should say quickly, the pen does post, but not super securely, and it changes the profile of the pen quite a lot. This is a pen that is of a decent enough size to be comfortable in the hand. In fact, the Dailymate series was designed as everyday writers. Pens that had a nice sort of width to them, a nice lightweight, and a decent enough size to be able to write with every day. Yes, 1.1 millimeter stub. Stay tuned next month. So this is for June 2026. I'm doing a nib comparison where I compare all the number 6 size nibs that Benu have done. So the fine, medium, broad, 1.1, 1.5, and the elastic fine. I'll be comparing those on models like the Dailymate, the Euphoria, and the chare and things like that. This is a standard international cartridge converter pen. As I said, a cartridge and a converter was provided. I have the cartridge in here because this is Diamine Oxford Blue, which is one of my favorite ink colors. And as I've said many times recently, if a pen comes with a cartridge, I tend to use that first because I don't want to waste that ink. If there's going to be plastic waste, I may as well use it. And also what's great is that, this long cartridge, you don't get a whole lot of long cartridges in standard international sort of size. So once I've used this up, I will be able to refill it with other inks and sort of use it as well. And you get a great ink capacity with those. I've been using this pen for a couple of months, and you can see it's kind of down to like about there now. So about halfway through this long cartridge. It's beautiful, and I love writing with this pen. I'm not a huge stub nib person, but the Reveiw stub nibs are probably among my favorite. So that is the basics of this pen. It's, you know, there's a lot going on, as well as it being a nice, relatively straightforward pen. And I think that's exactly what they were going for. Okay, for the size comparison, typical Lamy Safari there. And then I have a Euphoria model. This is the autograph version, which is hand-painted. And then the Tribute Charles Darwin, or Darwin version here. So you can see it's slightly smaller. It's about more on line with the Lamy Safari there in terms of length. Uncapped, it's a little shorter, definitely shorter than the other two Benu pens here. As I said, the Euphoria size and the Tribute size. And the Benu pens all post quite long. This is still the shortest of this setup, but you can see the Euphoria there is particularly long when it's posted, and they're all longer there than the Lamy Safari. So we have the specific dimensions now of the Benu Dailymate. It's 139 millimeters when it is capped. It's 129 when it's uncapped, and it's 174 when it's posted. As I said, I don't necessarily feel the need to post this pen. I don't like the line of it posted. I feel like that big step down there is just not particularly sort of attractive. Around the section is about 10 millimeters, and the widest cap point of the cap is about 18 millimeters. So it's comfortable. It's comfortable in the hand. The weight is 24.5 grams, 13 in the body and 11.5 in the cap. So that's the other issue, is that you are putting a large amount of weight on the back there if you do decide to post it. So I tend to write with this unposted, as you can expect. So here we have the Benu Dailymate Fresh Monday with a 1.1 millimeter stub nib from Reveiw, and it is steel. And the ink in this is Diamine. Oxford Blue, which comes with every Benu pen. This one, I will say, one thing I do want to say very, very quickly is that this Oxford Blue is a little darker, and that is simply because I think there are slight sealing issues with this pen. Not enough to stop it from writing, but just enough to sort of dry the ink out a little bit in the nib. You'll find that with the writing sample, you can already see it. It gets lighter as you go. Just the first little bit is a little bit darker. But once it's flowing, you see you get more of that traditional Oxford Blue color. And this is a very smooth stub nib, 1.1 millimeter, so nice broad downstrokes and thinner cross strokes. Stub nibs are particularly nice for right-handed writers. Giving you nice shape in the writing there, whereas a left-handed writer tends to just get a bit of a marker effect from it. But I also like that because when I'm printing, I get nice sort of crisp lines. As you can see, there's like Oxford Blue written there. Reverse writing, it's okay, but you don't really get a whole lot of sort of variation by nature of the stub. And by nature of the stub, it's also not a flex pen. Like, don't flex your pens if they're not designed for it, people. They do an elastic fine nib if that's what you're after. And that is even not flex. That's just a slightly soft nib. Wetness, once it's writing, as I said, it writes beautifully wet. To start with, it's darker, it's slightly drier. But as the ink flows down a bit more, you just get a beautiful writing experience with this pen. Let's do some quick writing. Like, there's absolutely no issue. Like, it's writing like a dream. These Reveiw stub nibs are fantastic. Benu are known for making sure that every nib is great. It's so rare to hear of bad Benu nibs. So rare. This is a great example of that. So the Dailymate is also one of the more affordable pens from Benu. This one retails for about $140 US. So for full-size pen with a number 6 size nib from Benu, that's like the beginning sort of price point. Now, that's not inexpensive, but you are getting a for, still nib cartridge converter, but you are getting interesting pens, designs. It's still a relatively sort of small company. I'm very grateful for the support of Benu, who have been wonderfully generous with this channel over the years and continue to be. They are wonderful, wonderful people to deal with. I just have to say that. But 140 is, I think it's a good price point for this pen. Like when you think that Euphoria models, which are bigger pens, but still cartridge converter with a steel number 6 nib, I think this is a really good price point. Now for pros and cons, starting with the cons, as I said, I think there's a little bit of a drying out issue. It's not terrible, but just around the nib, I get a little bit of drying out to the point where sometimes it can take half a letter to get writing, and the first few letters tend to be a little bit darker, a little bit drier, and then once it starts going, you get back to the standard ink color. An ink being drier or darker when you first start writing and then return to its usual color, for me is always a sign that there's a little bit of air getting to that nib because it's evaporating the water out and therefore making the ink more concentrated. That's just what's kind of happening. So I get that a tiny bit with this pen. I also understand Benu is not going to be to everyone's taste. The designs, the colors, the garishness of them, the sparkle, all that kind of stuff. But they are to a lot of people's taste. So if they're not your taste, that's absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. Totally agree. Not for everyone. But there are a lot of people who love these pens. And I really love how these pens perform. That's what makes it so exciting for me personally. The other thing as I said, I don't love is the posting of this pen. It doesn't post super deep or secure. And I just think that aesthetically, it's not a great look and the balance is a little bit off. So for me, it's unposted and it's insanely comfortable. And that's the first of the pros I want to put out there, is the fact that the balance of this pen is really nice. The weight in the hand, it's very comfortable. Long writing sessions, short writing sessions, sketching, whatever, this is very comfortable. But there are the other pros. Brilliant stub nib, number 6 Jovo nib. So like it writes sublimely. There are tons of finishes in this pen model. I think there are like 10 different versions you can get and a range of colors, bright, darker, the mix of it. This is sort of like, I suppose, middle of the ground in that respect. I like the fact they made some simple revisions from the original version of this pen. It used to take a lot more twists. So it's now 1.5, but I think it was around 3 turns before. They made those alterations. They listen to their customers. They listen to the reviewers. They take note of these things and they improve their pens. Benu are there to make writing instruments that write. Not just writing instruments that sit nicely on a shelf or are impractical but look great. They make writing instruments that write. And that comes across in everything from making those revisions and also down to things like the choices of nibs. Schmidt standard round nibs, so fine, medium, broad, are wonderful. Jovo 1.1, 1.5 and elastic fine. Those are great options and they are all taken care of by Benu. This is a company who thinks about the people writing with the pens and I applaud them for it. So thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe, hit the notifications button and consider becoming a member of this channel. In the meantime, enjoy your pens, enjoy writing, and I'll talk to you soon.